Today on the Pokemon Masterclass, I am joined by the legend himself to discuss his amazing journey through the world of Pokemon card collecting. From the beginning, Gary Hayes has been one of the most instrumental figures advocating for the hobby, and his influence today extends far beyond its humble beginnings. Although he is predominantly known for having the world's most expensive collection, today we take a deeper look into who the man behind the collection really is. Whether you know him as Gary or King Pokemon, it is with sincere pleasure that I present you one of the most kind-hearted and generous members of the community. Please welcome everyone, the man, the myth, the legend, Gary Hayes, aka King Pokemon. Gary, how is it going, my friend?
Oh, it's going very well. Thanks for having me on here.
Well, this is a true treat for me, my friend. I tell you,
Thank you.
It's always a full circle experience for me doing these interviews, because I tell my guests all the time, a lot of the people that I have on were big influences to me in jumping onto YouTube and really getting back into Pokemon in general. And this is no exception to the rule. You have been a huge influence, and I know there's so many people out there that can attest to the same thing. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on today.
Well, great, but it's still nice to hear that. I appreciate that.
Oh, of course. Well, Gary, I think the best place to start here, obviously you are very well known throughout the hobby, but many people out there may not know your actual origin story, at least when it comes to Pokemon. So if you would, go ahead and take us back to the beginning and kind of fill us in on how all of this started and how you became involved in Pokemon.
Well, my very first exposure to Pokemon, the first time I even heard about it was like somewhere around 1997, I think. It's somewhere in that area, where there was an international news wire. It came across the AP, Associated Press, and it was talking about Japanese kids going into seizures because of a Japanese cartoon. And of course, that was Pocket Monsters, Pokemon. And so I thought, boy, this hit the international news, and kids are watching these multicolors and swirling colors, and it actually put some kids into seizures. And that was that just told me that the hobby must be awfully huge in Japan for that. Number one, to garner attention locally there, but then to hit the international press, I thought, boy, this is really something. This is something to look into, and which I did. And then I found out that they were in 1998 that they were hoping to go with an international release, and I just couldn't see that missing, because I knew about the popularity in Japan. You talk about these days, people talking about scalpers and not being able to find modern product and all that. Well, it was even worse than that in Japan when in the mid 90s when Pokemon came out. So just knowing that, I knew it was going to be big here. So I got involved with a group that brought Japanese promos over from Japan, not set cards, but promos. Mm-hmm. Things like the birthday Pikachu and inside the sticker packs, and the vending cards, the CD promos, and got them on the air here at the Home Shopping Network, or Shop at Home, whatever it was called at the time. And they just sold out immediately for big bucks. We ended up sending them all to PSA and having them graded, and then just did one of those big hype jobs, like you see on Home Shopping. Mm-hmm. I think we got Ken Golden or somebody to do it, typical huckster. And but it was really popular. Everything just always sold out. And then once Media Factory in Japan saw how popular it was and it was going to be, they cut us loose. And because they wanted, they didn't want to share the pie. They wanted to take it all, understandably. And so, that was really my first exposure in a business sense. In a personal sense, as soon as they hit, as soon as January 1999 came, and there was some release on the West Coast. I was all over it. I jumped all over it, collected with my sons, built sets, sold duplicates on Yahoo USA. There used to be a Yahoo Auctions USA that years ago closed down in the United States, and my sons loved it. All of their friends loved it. If you went on the schoolyard, every single kid had their binder, and they were all Pokemon, and so from a personal sense, that's where it got started.
So what were you doing at that time? You said that you saw the potential there, and so you connected that with the Home Shopping Network and some bigger figures at that time. Were you involved in that industry? I'm interested to know what you were doing at the time.
Yeah, it's far from it, actually. I was running the Asian games section, Asian gambling games, at the Bicycle Club Casino in Bell Gardens, California. I had a background running casinos and things in Las Vegas, but at that time I was like in my eighth or ninth year at the Bicycle Club in Bell Gardens in California, just outside of Los Angeles. And then I came down with an illness. I got malignant melanoma, a cancer in my leg, and that was requiring surgeries, and so I wasn't able to work. And that was right at the beginning of 1999, right when the Pokemon thing started. And so because of all the surgeries, I couldn't walk, and so I was pretty much confined to quarters. And yet I had my 7 and 8 year old boys, and so I was messing around with them, participating in their stuff, and that's when Pokemon came out. And so I was able to concentrate full time on what the newest thing was, and that was Pokemon. And what was going on at the time was unprecedented. I never saw such a reaction to any new release of anything. And I go back to as a little kid in the 1950s collecting things. I had never seen anything like what was going on with Pokemon. And so even though I was enjoying it with my sons, I had quite a background in other collectible card games, TV series, old Topps cards from the 1960s, 1970s. Anyway, I understood condition. I knew to take care of your stuff, and that if it was going to be valuable someday, it'd be more valuable if they were in good condition. And so having that knowledge, I ended up taking care of all the cards. We played with them, we did everything with them, but they were always in sleeves and top loaders, and but I had time to do it because of my illness.
Wow, and that sounds pretty familiar to what a lot of people are going through right now with the pandemic. It's kind of a modern day, similar occurrence where a lot of people found more time on their hands. And I think that's one of the reasons why Pokemon really exploded over this last year. There was more time. People were spending more time at home, maybe on YouTube, and coming across YouTubers. And to me, it was really just a perfect storm.
On a much bigger scale. But you're right. That's exactly what I went through, as a party of one compared to now. But that's a good observation. That's exactly what it was like. If I was working, I couldn't have participated like I did, and everything would have been different.
So you had this previous history with collectibles. I'm interested to hear from you. Were there certain characteristics about Pokemon? Obviously, you said you had never seen such popularity before in a hobby. But were there any particular factors that really stood out to you that you said to yourself, this is something that I think has long-term value or long-term collectability?
I guess it was the general interest, the general enthusiasm. We got notes sent home to us telling us that kids were no longer allowed to bring Pokemon cards to school. That's unprecedented. There was stuff like that was never going on, and and all that meant was that all the kids were so into it that it was just a phenomenon. And so that's really what the difference was. There were a lot of things, for the previous years. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was fun. The Power Rangers. There was a lot of great kids things that you could collect, and sure enough, I did. I collected everything back then, and except nothing rose to that level. Nothing was like it, and I mean, I'm no genius, that's for sure, but I was smart enough to recognize a unique trend, and this was a unique trend. This was unprecedented. Never saw anything like it in my life. I mean, you talk about people lining up in front of the Targets now, right? Trying to get modern product. Well, back then they were stealing trucks. They were hanging out in front of Wizards of the Coast, digging through trash cans, just to get any little Pokemon related thing that they could find. And remember, that's when the parents, none of us knew anything about Pokemon. These days, you might have a son or daughter who loves Pokemon, yet they're preaching to the choir because you loved Pokemon when you were a kid. So you have that connection. Back then we didn't, and yet it was still monstrous.
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, I was 8 years old when base set was initially released in the US. And I tell people this all the time, and I don't know if you remember this as well, Gary, but if, as you said, if people think that it's crazy now where it's hard to find products in stores, same thing. I remember shelves were cleared because actual kids were going in and stealing products off the shelves. Yeah. And I can remember going to your Targets, your Walmarts, the big box stores, and you could not actually purchase product off of the shelves. You had to go to the customer service counter. They had the cards behind the counter, and then they actually allocated you a certain amount of packs. You couldn't just buy out a whole booster box. They allocated you a certain number of packs. So the allocations and the short supply has really been there since the beginning.
It really has, and it's peaked probably 5-6 times like it is now. It's peaked 5 or 6 times over the last 22 years. It wasn't only in the beginning with base set when it first got introduced. I mean, that's happened numerous times over the last 2 decades, and that's what I try to get across. Everybody acts like that this is crazy. What the scalpers are doing, and all. I said, listen, all the scalpers are the secondary market. We've had secondary markets for every single popular collectible in my lifetime. So whether it was at a convention or when the computers, when started getting computers and started getting, the auctions. I mean, it's always been there. This is not unusual. And what we had to do was adjust. We had to maneuver. Maybe we couldn't do this, but we could do that. And that's one of my pet peeves now is about, especially, like that Caribou girl and this other one. I mean, they make it sound so negative, and they make it sound unprecedented. It's not. This has happened many times before with all kinds of collectibles. And if the hobby wasn't worth it, if it wasn't popular, it wouldn't be happening.
No, I totally agree with you. And I've held a similar sentiment. And I've also given kind of the juxtaposing argument of, well, yes, there's a lot of people now that are very into Pokemon and people are wanting to get products. But where were you back in 2015, 2013 when Pokemon was going through a slump?
Yeah,
those same people weren't there screaming at the top of their lungs, "Where's the products at?"
Right. Yeah, but a lot of these long time content creators, they were there back then, and they were doing the same thing then they're doing now, and that's why I love all the content creators. They've hung in there. It's not just because it's popular, more popular now. is because they love the hobby. And I don't like anybody to, cast shade on those people, which is why I didn't like that Caribou video, casting shade on all these unbelievably great people. Most I know personally, as just tremendous people. And I'm just hoping. I don't know if you were going to get to this, but the Scott Pratt video, I'm pushing that like crazy because he's discussing the same thing all of them are, except he doesn't mention one person's name. He doesn't cast shade on scalpers or on PSA or on media Wizards. The Pokemon Company International. All he does is come up with solutions and ideas, that you can't do this, but you can do that. Maybe you can't get the base set right now, but you can get the Japanese base set. The prices are so reasonable. It's the identical artwork, actually better paper stock. You go through things like that. Sometimes you have to adjust. You can't always get what you want today. Now those things can come in time. Right now it's not gonna be a crazy frenzy forever. So yeah. So I don't know. That it's kind of what I'm going through right now, a pet peeve where I'm trying to educate people. Don't feel bad. Don't curse the hobby, and don't be so doggone negative, because 90% is positive. Be 90% positive and throw in your feelings. We all have negative feelings. Throw them in, but don't cast it as if that's the whole hobby. It's not. There's so many positive, good things going on. Be a part of that, and your collecting style, change it a little bit. Adjust it. You got to go with the times.
Well, Gary, I think you have the evidence of that right there sitting behind you. Like you said, many of these influencers, many of these content creators take Leonhardt, take the Aoki Foundation, through the umbrella, through the means of Pokemon, have been able to raise so much money for various organizations. Take Leonhardt. I'll say it right here, that he was the one that seemed to have taken most of the brunt of the punishment off of that video. Yet this is also the same guy who is essentially giving away base set packs for $3.99 and allowing people to enjoy the hobby, which in actuality it can be expensive. And also, to your same point, the market is going to do what the market is going to do. I'm a former financial advisor, and so I understand markets and how they operate. And right now we're in the high. We're in the high of the market, and that's typically not a good time to buy into the market.
Right. In anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's collectibles, whether it's the financial markets, real estate. You want to buy in when it's at its low point, and it just so happens we are going through a peak at this time. But as you said, I have created videos myself much in the similar manner to what Scott Pratt put out, in that there's always opportunities out there for collectors, for investors. So if you go down that hierarchy, you can start at first edition base set. Well, if that's not within your realm, then maybe it's shadowless. If that's not, unlimited. Japanese evolutions. You can just continually go down. CP6. There's always a price point for everyone, in my opinion. And I think that's where people just have to kind of open their eyes to that wider opportunity.
Yeah, don't just snivel and complain about it. Make it fit you. Make it fit you personally. With what you can do. And you're right about Leonhardt. He, there is no more genuine guy than he is. If go back and check his years ago, his very first video. Go back and look at his very first video and see what his goal was. He states it in his first video that he wants to do something, that he wants to build up a channel that he can raise, that he's going to be able to raise money for charity. And I mean, that was his goal from the very first day, right? And yet this is the guy people are casting shade on. Oh my God. And as far as being legit, he's had me, he loves to do videos with me because he gets a lot of views, so he likes that. But he loves to do videos with me. And so I'm with him in person, many times, and I've seen his reaction. I've seen the look in his eye. I've seen how important this is, and how those reactions you see, outside the thumbnails, but the reactions you see when he posts things are totally legit. I mean, he feels this from the heart. He loves it. The charity aspect of it is nothing new. It's something he said he would do from his very first _1 video with 0 subscribers. Go back, everybody that watches this, go back, watch his first video and see what his goal was, and that he not only accomplished that goal, but he just blew it apart. I mean, now his first year doing the NAMI, I did it with him. So I was able to communicate a lot with him and help him with it and that. And I mean, he just wanted to keep going and going with it. I mean, he's legit. He cares. He cares about the hobby. He cares tons about his. I mean, I've done appearances with him. Besides the one a couple weeks ago, I've done other ones with him where he will talk to these little kids with their mother or father when there's a long line, and just asking them about school, asking them, who's your favorite, instead of just signing something and rushing them on their way, actually interested in his followers, actually caring about these kids. How many times I heard him say, "Oh yeah, you were here last year, I remember you," and stuff like that, right? And so, yeah, you're right about him and about these other guys too. Honest to God, these are tremendous people who care about what they're doing, and they deserve nothing but praise. And then there's going to be some other things coming up too, with Leon, where I'm going to be, working with him. And see, people tend overall to trust me for some reason, to trust me. And I guess they know I don't do this for a living. This isn't, this is just something I do out of a passion. But because of that, I get to know everybody else, and I know who's legit. And that video that put these, that put Super Duper Danny in a bad light. What? No way.
I don't think are you speaking of the same video?
Yeah, the caribou video. That's the big topic of the day. There's been other things in the past, but even Super Duper Danny, was put out there, and there's not a sweeter person on the planet than her. So, right.
Well, Gary, I think going back to your question of why people trust you, I think it's very much the same reason that people trust Lee, people trust Super Duper Danny, and it's because, and I've actually had the opportunity to speak at least to Super Duper Danny. Never, unfortunately, had the privilege to speak with Lee before, but you and her and many of the people in this hobby, it's the same characteristic. You're completely genuine. It doesn't matter if you're with Steve Aoki, it doesn't matter if you're with Graham Stephan, or you're speaking to little old PokéNav here. It's the same generosity through and through. No matter who it is, no matter how big, how small, it's that same level of generosity. And to me, it permeates throughout the hobby. Yes, there's going to be some bad apples in no matter what hobby it is. Doesn't matter what you're doing. But for the most part, I think the hobby and the community as a whole should consider themselves very lucky that we do have the personalities and the individuals in this hobby that we do, because I've been a part of other hobbies before and they can be very, very toxic. So I think we're quite lucky.
Right. Well, we were talking a little bit about the girls, and I mean, that's a big project for me now, where I'm trying to pump up the females in the hobby. I told you I have like 3,000 female followers on Instagram, and yet I don't think there's 10 content creator, females, that are out there. And that's ridiculous. Because of the way they get treated. It's because of the, it's like it's okay for these, weirdos to say anything they want to them. But then it hurts you. Not everybody is like, I don't want to say anybody specifically, some it bounces right off. Like my wife, that stuff, she knows these are just silly little boys and that, but it hurts, sometimes when you hear it, when you have people leave, even for us, when they leave bad comments, it even hurts us sometimes. So, that's why I'm pushing to, to get more. I would love to get a panel of the girls together, a moderated panel of like 6 of them. And I think it'd be a great video for some content creator to do. I don't really do much, of that. I'll participate for everybody, but I do very little myself. But it would be a great thing for somebody to put together a panel, with people like Edith and Jess Plays Pokemon and Bo Dangers and Super Duper Danny, get all these girls together. Even Caribou Girl, get her too, because most of the stuff she does is fine, and but she has a little bit different opinion. Well, that's good. Get them out there, get them to discuss it, and it would be interesting for all of us to watch too.
Oh, for sure. No, I totally agree.
We would learn something.
Definitely, and I've been a big proponent of that since the beginning, since I started my channel. And one of the goals that I had for this channel was to have that open dialogue, that open conversation where we could bring together people of differing perspectives, different ideas, and bring them together and be able to have a discussion where people could hear all of these different perspectives, these different opinions, and then could make more of an educated decision as to how they want to invest, how they want to collect, what their overall perspective on the hobby is. And I think the only way that you can have that is with that open dialogue. So I really like the thought of that.
And it's also good, for the new girls coming into the hobby, to have, somebody they can maybe relate a little bit better to, than somebody like me, somebody, some old guy, get some of the young girls, where they can have their own role models. I'll tell you what, this hobby deserves it. I mean, this hobby is jam up, it's a great hobby, and it has everything, and it deserves to cater to, to the young girls coming up too, and that they have their own role models. And we do have some already. We just don't have enough. So
well,
let's
who knows?
Support them. Let's be nice to them. Let's build them up. Let's a lot of our success and a lot of our hobby success depends on them.
Definitely, yeah. And I've said before, we are really on the precipice of this hobby. We're still in the infancy of Pokemon card collecting, and everything that we do now, all of the things that we put into place now, will determine how sustainable it is, the long-term success of it, and how enjoyable it is for people and for our kids, for your grandkids, for my kids, for their kids, for generations to come. We are really at the forefront of that, and I think we should all be very cognizant of that fact.
Right, it's kind of a responsibility we have, and we should take it as a responsibility too.
Definitely, and I think we do have great figureheads like yourself, like Lee, and I know that all of you guys really understand that responsibility and understand that you are the faces. And like I said, I'm very happy to be even a small part of this. But
well, you're not small, but you were smaller, and you're getting bigger and bigger, and there's a reason for that.
Well, I hope so. I think it's mainly because I get good people like yourself on. You guys make me look good by proxy.
Well, I'm glad I can be a part of it, and I hope you call me again.
Oh, definitely. No, the invite is always there, always there. And I know you're a busy guy, always got things going on. And that's actually something that I wanted to talk to you about. So for me, my first introduction to you was, as I think many people, was through Pawn Stars. Now, I started back into Pokemon. I got back into it in early 2016. At that time, I was still a practicing financial advisor, and I was just doing some scrolling through eBay and came across some vintage boxes. First one I came across was a Base Set Unlimited booster box. And so that really intrigued me, and I've heard other interviews that you've given in the past, and I had the same type of ideas of, wow, like this, the supply of this cannot be that much. This has to be a limited asset, and I thought a very appreciable asset. But what's funny is that at that time, I started getting more into Pokemon, and my dad, I never really watched Pawn Stars, but my dad always really liked the show. And I was into it for a few months, and he came to me and he says, hey, I just saw this episode of Pawn Stars, and there was a guy on there with like $500,000 worth of Charizards. And so that was the first time that I saw you there. Would you say that through that episode, that really propelled maybe your notoriety as well as the hobby's notoriety?
Well, even at the time, I would say for the time in 2016, I was probably either the or one of the absolute most popular people in the hobby already, and I had been for many, many years. I used to go to all the way from 1999. I used to go to card shops and shows and just to discuss the hobby. I did a lot of eBay and Yahoo. On Yahoo auctions, I was over 2,000 rated just in 1999. Wow. So I did a lot of stuff. So people did get to know me, and people that were in the hobby for quite a while, at least from the beginning, they all already knew me. It was kind of like me, E. Birdman, Eddie Brenneschultz, and then another fella, Steve Gordon. The three of us were, I guess the kids would say today, the OGs of Pokemon.
The granddaddies.
We were known. In fact, it's the whole reason they came to me, about the Pawn Stars episode, which as you know, was half set up with an honest negotiation, but it was set up for me to appear, and it's because they wanted to get, with Pokemon Go having just come out and Pokemon so popular, they wanted to get a Pokemon segment, and so they came to me, and so yeah, I was well known in the hobby well before that, but it blew up when the Pawn Stars theme, because things happened like with your dad. People that might have just had a faint memory of their kids playing Pokemon or something. Suddenly young people who had cards and they've grown up and they were tucked away somewhere. They saw me on Pawn Stars with, at the time, $500,000 in value Pokemon cards, and it got them thinking exactly what your dad did. And that was, my son or daughter had these cards, had a load of these cards. This $500,000, let's see, where'd I put those cards, or where did my son, put those cards? And it brought that interest to the surface. And it was the whole reason I did it. I was not interested in selling my collection, believe me, which is why for the time I overpriced it. I knew Rick wouldn't pay over market for something. But that was the whole reason I did it, was to bring, piggyback on Pokemon Go and get it, even more popular as a comeback thing. Because like you said earlier, there were a couple years just before that it was on a bit of a slide, and then it came back up with Pokemon Go. And I knew my appearance on, I knew a Pokemon appearance on Pawn Stars would be huge. Now, I didn't anticipate it being that big, because maybe, as you've seen, it's the second most viewed segment in the history of Pawn Stars. there's been over 2,000 segments. That Pokemon one is number 2. So, that says a lot right there. We didn't expect that. I knew it would raise attention back towards Pokemon. I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't expect it to be that popular, though. So, yeah, to be honest, yeah, I was pretty well known in the hobby for what it's worth. I'm the one who started with Eddie Brendeschultz doing PSA grading on Pokemon cards. During downtimes, I strategized with all the original guys to get it to what can we do to get this back on track, to make it more popular. And so I played a big part in that. So, yeah, I was known before. I was pretty well known before. But the Pawn Stars episode, really blew that popularity up. But it did a lot of good too. So, which was the whole reason for doing it.
Oh, definitely. I'm interested to know, during those down years, did you ever think to yourself, man, maybe I made a mistake in betting on this hobby? Or, I think much in the same manner as the rest of us, that passion, whether it's a downtime or it's a peak, the passion for the hobby is always there. But did you think to yourself, well, maybe this wasn't the hobby that I thought it was? And then on top of that, what made you go with PSA versus Beckett, some of the other grading companies, and dive into that realm?
Okay, well, about the PSA thing, I was actually friendly with Joe Orlando, who was at the time he was the PSA president, and I had been grading sports cards since the mid '90s. Before there was Pokemon, and so for those reasons, we went with PSA. But we could have went with Beckett's. That could have happened. But we just ended up going with PSA, which ended up being a gold mine for PSA.
Oh,
and the
sure.
first part of the question again.
Were you nervous during those downtimes? During the kind of, you probably. Oh, I would say it was probably 2000, maybe 2005 to 2015, maybe less, maybe more, but kind of during that time frame.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've always gone by the premise that as long as a hobby is active, it's safe. So it's like had they stopped, making Star Wars movies, and then I could see that part of the hobby fizzling out. If they stopped making sets of Pokemon cards, and if they stopped holding tournaments and international worlds and regionals, and had they backed off on that, if they didn't make a new set, then I would have been very much so. But I know, and you as a financial person, ebbs and flows. Just because the market goes down doesn't mean you have to sell your house, because the market's going to come back, and new houses are going to be built, which is kind of what's going on now, and and so that's how I felt about Pokemon. I was never worried about that, and I'm not in the least bit worried now. Of course, there's going to be drop-offs. I mean, they're supposed to be. There always is. But then, this being the 25th anniversary, with all these amazing things coming up this year, I don't see a drop off this year. It could, if it did drop off a little bit in the next year or two, there's going to be something beyond that. Something else is going to. They're printing sets like crazy. They can't make enough sets. They can't make enough cards. And so, yeah, no, all the way from the very beginning, I had no concern about the hobby dying, going the way of Beanie Babies, or going the way of those of sports cards, the way they did in the 1990s. No, I had no concern then. I have no concern now. No problem at all.
Well, and I think Pokemon is also unique in the fact that very often I hear people connect Pokemon to comics, and how the comics of the 90s just took a huge hit, and now they're not really worth anything anymore. Yeah. What people don't realize is that there were multiple, even with sports cards, there were multiple companies essentially printing the exact same card. Whereas with Pokemon, you have one company that has, you know, the full stake in printing these cards. And then on top of that, it is a multifaceted organization. So if there's not Pokemon cards being released, there's video games, or there's the anime. There's something always bringing people back into the hobby. And movies, yeah, always something there. But at the core of it, I think the way it's always been is the TCG has always been at the core. You know, obviously the games is what started it all, but the cards, I think, is what propelled it to an entirely new level.
More people are collecting the cards than playing the game. That's for sure. But there are a lot of people playing the game, and we have, you know, now at Pokemon Worlds, you know, there's actually, you know, different divisions, and, you know, where they're bringing that into the competitions. And so you're right. The multifaceted side of it just makes it all the safer, because one thing might drop off a little bit, but then something like Pokemon Go comes up. You know?
Yep. It's like it's analogous to the financial world and having a diversified portfolio where you've got your stocks, your fixed income, you got your short-term reserves. Well, Pokemon's got all these different areas that they're pulling from, so that if, as you said, if one takes a downturn, well, they'll put more resources towards the other to boost it up.
And it figures to get better and better now too, better than it ever did, and I think faster. Because now, if you're playing with your 8-year-old son, you know, if you're playing Pokemon with your 8-year-old son, you're doing it because you're having fun. You know, it's not like 1999 where you were doing it just to participate with your kids. You know, now you're doing it because you were 9 years old and you were playing with those cards and having a great time, and you can identify with it and actually have fun doing it. You know, that's why I think it's even better today. And the next generation is going to be no different. Now you're going to have grandparents playing with their parents, playing with their grandchildren. And I mean, it's just, my sons don't have kids yet, but there's absolutely, you know, no question in my mind that once they do, and when those kids reach 6, 7, 8 years old, they're going to be right with their grandpa, you know, goofing around with Pokemon. And all parties enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. And you bring up a very good point there, and one that I've described before as well, in that my generation, the kids that were born in, you know, the early 90s, late 80s, we are the first generation to grow up with Pokemon. And now we have reached a point where we do have more disposable income. We're at a point in our life where we're now having children and passing on that same passion to our kids. Where this is really maybe the same thing that occurred in Marvel Comics or DC Comics for generations that I think it spans all the way back to the 50s, 60s, and look at the success that those have had over the years, and that's because it's become intergenerational, where now Pokemon, my generation, with the help of, you know, people like yourself, are now starting that process very similarly to other hobbies.
And, you know, by the same token, maybe now is a good time for the guys your age. You're the same age as my oldest was born 1991, and my youngest son was 1992. Maybe this is a good time, you know, to pick up that phone and call your dad, call your mom, whoever it was, you know, that showed an interest with you in Pokemon when there was no inherent interest inside them. You see, it's a little bit easier with me playing with you, right? It was a lot different back then, you know, with them, you know, not knowing what in the world a Weedle was, or what does that even mean, you know, when, you know, but they still did it, you know, they still participated. And I mean, it's really says a lot, you know, if your parents were able to, you know, maneuver the hobby with you at the time. It's time to make a phone call and to thank them for that, because it's huge. That's awfully big.
Oh, definitely. And those are some of my fondest memories. My parents, they were sort of into it, or at least, they gave me the perception that they were. But for me, it was always my grandmother. And I've told this story before. I grew up in a real small town in northeastern Arizona, and we had no card shops. We had no way of getting Pokemon cards. So I actually had to drive 20 minutes to the nearest town where there was a card shop, and my grandma would take me every weekend. We would drive over, we would have lunch, we would buy cards, and she would always tell me, okay, you got to wait till we get home to open those up. And we weren't in the car for 2 minutes and I was already ripping into them. But so many great experiences. And now she sees me, I'm making content on Pokemon. She sees that I invest in Pokemon. And, when I see that twinkle in her eye of she realizes that many of the cards that she bought me as a child have now brought back this passion later on in my life. It's just such an amazing experience.
See, she played a big part in it. That's why, in fact, she deserves an awful lot of thanks, because, without, that participation from her and people like her, you wouldn't have been able to progress and grow in the hobby back then without them. So no, that I love that story a lot.
Yeah, it's one of my fun. And in fact, what's so funny, I remember the first time, the first pack that I opened back in 2016, I got an unlimited jungle pack. And when I opened it up, it still had, it's so funny how the senses, all of our senses will bring back that nostalgia. And when I opened up that pack, there was a smell that came out of there, and it immediately put me back into the passenger seat of my grandma's car back in, 1999, 2000. And it immediately took me back there. And it's just so powerful. And I think
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I think that's what brings people, what gravitates people to this hobby. There's especially those that started with it back in 99, the late 90s. There's just so much nostalgia attached to it that it's hard to wrap your head around sometimes.
And a lot of those memories were all built by people like her, and that's why they are owed that's why I always say pick up your phone and call them. They're owed a debt of gratitude, from the Pokemon company too. It's because of them, that the Pokemon company progressed and grew so much. And I admit it's a very wholesome hobby. It's actually a lot of fun. The artwork is cool. It's fun to look at and discuss. And many times you hear people saying, they traded their Blastoise for a Ponyta because the Ponyta was so cute, and that that's all artwork. That's all all a part of it. And so no, that's tremendous story. God love her. I just love hearing those stories. Like that, and they just deserve so much credit. I like it when my son, who on Instagram he's Pokemon Prince. He started doing some things, and he's getting involved, but he's always been involved in the hobby. And for in 1999, he was 7 years old and very active. He opened up our first base set pack, and did pull a Charizard. Absolutely did, and didn't let go of it for a month. and yet he has stories that he tells, on his Instagram, or when he communicates through DM with people. He tells stories to people, that things I didn't remember, but having hear him say it, I recall. And then I thought, doggone it, I really made an impression, on him. I even beyond what I thought I had. And and then just to see how he talks about me and how he respects me, for what I did and all that. I mean, this is all because of Pokemon. He feels he can express, and he's a typical hip hop rapper, fun, but when it comes to Pokemon, that brings it back, that, like you were saying, the nostalgia side of it. And and that's where the heart is. That's where the heart is, right there. And so so it's fun. It's fun for me to follow him and to listen to his stories and that, because they bring back the memories to me, and they make me realize that, well, doggone it, I did some things right.
Oh, I would say so, and I love that. I just love hearing those stories as well, and it's crazy to think that no matter where we go in our lives, and I think that's the other thing that I love to see with this hobby is, like you said with your son, hip hop, rap, what right. doesn't always seem to associate with something like this, a trading card game that by all intents and purposes was designed for kids.
Yes.
You've got people out there that, like myself, I was financial advisor, businessman. You've got doctors, lawyers, people from every walk of life. But when you boil it down, this was, especially I have to say for my generation, this was a pivotal part of our childhood. You would be hard pressed to speak with somebody that grew up during that time frame that didn't have Pokemon cards, that wasn't engrossed in Pokemon, because it was absolutely everywhere, and that was something that we could all rally around. That was something that was a common interest among pretty much every kid. And now that we're later, in our later years, starting to, as I said, starting to grow up, we're looking for those things that were so enjoyable in our childhood.
Right. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make any difference, what we've gone on to do, whether it's financial or, heck, I'm going over to a doctor, one of the top optometrist doctors and researchers in the country. I'm going over to his office tomorrow to bring him a couple signed, autographed Pokemon cards. Right.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, because I don't care what our station in life is. That's our childhood. That's where our memories is. That's where the nostalgia is. And like you said, it doesn't make any difference what you've gone on to do. You could be the most. Take Steve Aoki. You're talking about, for 20 years, one of the top, music DJs in the world, owner of world records. And you should see his eyes light up when him and I mess around with Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Right. And also you're talking about somebody that financially is insanely well off. Right. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, it doesn't matter where we ended up. What matters is where we start, and that's where we all started.
Yep.
And so that's what means the most to us.
Oh, that's so well said, Gary.
Right?
That is perfectly put. I'm interested to know, since you've been here from the very beginning, there's a lot of talk about the negativity and the negative aspects, but really I want to hear from you. What are the opportunities that you see, the big opportunities that you see for this hobby, for the community, as we move on into the future?
I hate to sell cards. I hate to sell anything. I hate to give up any of my collectibles. I have collectibles going back 40 years that I've been lugging around for 40 years, and they have absolutely zero value, financial value. I might be the worst person to answer that. Look at it this way. Look, I have a lot of what have turned out to be, extremely premium cards, and I still don't want to sell them. I've sold 2 cards in the last 2 years, and I sold them, to one, Steve Aoki, we're twin brothers. We call each other twin brothers. For him, I had to. But for the Logan Paul thing, it just felt right, and I knew it was going to help the hobby, and it did help the hobby big time by doing that. But besides, I get numerous requests a day to sell, to people want to buy my premium cards. I went to the show and they were holding first edition boxes, and they were holding my PSA 10, first edition Charizards, and they were coming up, and is there any chance you would sell one of these for any price, and I wouldn't even take offers for them. So as far as what does the future hold? Well, I got to tell you, for me, not very much, because if that mattered to me, I would start selling, because the prices are crazy, right? But now, if let me put on my Scott Pratt hat, and let's say I had a Patreon, and people are asking me advice that they're paying me for, or something. There's very little I could say, but one thing is for sure, I pretty much told you what I think, and that is the hobby is safe. The hobby, they keep putting out product is because people keep buying product. It's becoming a part of their lives. It's furthering their hobbies for the older guys. It's bringing new young people into the hobby. In 2 months, there's going to be another new set. It's just going to go on and on. Well, listen, like I said earlier, the hobby is just simply safe. Are there going to be ebbs and flows? Of course. If I were to ask you, is this the right time to buy a house, right? You can have opinions. That of course it's best to buy when the market's low, but you never know where that's going to be. For sure. There's a lot of people buying houses now, and the prices are at their highest, and they're building more houses, and people are still getting top dollar. And
this guy right here buying another home, adding another one.
Intellectually, I would tell you, well, let's say you're going to pay cash, okay? I would tell you, well, it'd be silly to buy a house now, because interest rates are so low, and housing prices are so high. Well, why in the world would you pay cash for a house that's at the highest, and you're not even taking advantage of the interest rates? Things like that. But as far as Pokemon is concerned, I just feel confident in the hobby. I don't think you can do anything wrong. I don't think you can do anything wrong besides sell. People ask me, do I regret any of my sales? I regret everything I ever sold. I'd love to have all of it stacked right up here in my house, where, like a hoarder, where you just have little aisleways you can sneak through. I wish I had every single card back I ever sold. So, as far as investment things and that, I guess I'm not the right guy, because even though I love the hobby and I think it's extremely safe, I just don't have that kind of a mindset. And if I did, I would probably do pretty well. Tuan wishes I was a little more like that,
Well, and even beyond the financials, I'm also interested to know just kind of your take on the hobby, the community as a whole. What are the opportunities you see for the Pokemon Company? What are some of the things you think they can do better? What do you see for the community as we begin to grow, as the community itself expands? What are some of the opportunities or some of the changes that you've seen over the years where you say to yourself, I think this is going in the right direction. I like these factors that I'm seeing.
Well, I would like to see a little better TPCI infrastructure. The company that makes Pokemon. These kinds of shortages we have, nobody could have anticipated the extent of the shortages, but you could anticipate some of it, and you could have something in, you could have a plan B in place, where you would be able to produce more cards, narrow the gap between supply and demand. It's almost like the gap is getting, you just cannot find new product, and nothing. It doesn't seem to me like anything is being done about it. So what I would do, I wouldn't blame anybody except the Pokemon Company. Figure out a way to get more cards out there. People are, other companies are making cards. Dragon Ball is doing an extremely good job, getting product out there. There's ways to do it. I'm not in that side of the business, and I would, but I can tell you this, I promise you, I would have a few more boxes on those shelves than they have if I was in charge of that. And for me, it's kind of like, were you going to ask any questions about PSA? Because, I'm very opinionated on PSA, but I can give you an analogy.
Sure.
Yeah, they came up with a letter recently that they sent to all of us, as if there was nothing they could do about what happened. Nobody could have anticipated COVID. Of course not. That nobody could have done anything better or different than what they did. And that is balderdash. Because let me tell you something, CGC saw it. CGC saw that. And so they started from basically nothing. Of course, they did comics and all that for years, but they had to get a whole new division in. They had to get, train, machinery, do all this. When they saw what was coming up, what was happening, the little bit longer wait times, slowly longer and longer and longer. CGC saw it. They did something about it. And now they're growing like crazy, like them or not. They're growing like crazy. Well, my question is, why didn't PSA do that? See, CGC didn't do something that PSA couldn't do, did they?
Right.
I mean, that's their PSA's business. They already had the infrastructure. Any machine that CGC had to purchase, PSA could have purchased in that. So that's why that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to make a point that, the blame, the blame is there, but it's mainly on the manufacturers. I love to say PSA started CGC because of mismanagement, and I have a love-hate, like everybody knows, a love-hate relationship with PSA. I mean, I got them Pokemon. I've worked, with them over the years, on so many things, and they've done such a tremendous job so many times. And then other times there's mistakes and there's problems, and I'm not shy. I have no reason not to, voice my opinion. And so, to show you something crazy, right now, PSA doesn't even follow me. They unfollowed me over something, recently. Wow. But they authenticated my signature, my autograph. Now my autograph is in their database where they will authenticate, Gary's signature, which is, I mean, to me, I think that's absurd, because I'm not an actor. I'm not I'm not a voice actor. I'm not an artist or anything like that. But I guess they got enough requests for it, and I signed enough stuff that they did do it. But I was shocked that they did it, because I'm a little bit, they unfollowed me on Instagram. Wow. Not that it matters, but at that same time, they approved my signature for authentication. So, yeah. Wow. So I know it's those are my two big gripes. I do very little negatives, but it's always has something to do with those things, with especially with the PSA thing. But then there's a positive, there they authenticated my signature, and that's crazy. If you go through their list, because I checked it to see how they put my name down in there, and you see Babe Ruth, King George, Michael Jordan, and Gary King Pokemon.
That's some good company. That's some real good company.
Is that crazy? Is that so? I can't help but be flattered, but it is absurd. But at least they did it, and there are people that I guess wanted it, or they wouldn't have done that.
No, and going back to what you said about PSA, I just recently had Graded Gem on, who, one of the largest PSA middlemen. I had James, aka Z from Z&G Emporium, on, who is a middleman, or an ambassador rather, for Graded Gem.
And I like him.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. James is great. He lives about 20 minutes from me as well. Such a small world.
Oh,
But
uh-huh.
talking with them, and
Well,
I've
say
said it
hi for
before.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Well, you're not too far from us. As the crow flies,
that's true. That's
Vegas isn't
true.
too far.
Nope, just a few
But
hours.
that's right. But talking to them and what I have said before, to me, it's baffling that we're in 2021 and most grading companies are still using human graders for the core of their grading process. I
Yes.
know CGC has a little bit of a combination of both algorithm and computer-based grading and human
Mhm.
graders,
Mhm.
but I really think that at some point we're probably going to have strictly algorithm or computer-based grading, which to me is a good thing because ultimately that builds more consistency in the grading process. I can see
Yes.
some potential animosity there because people may say, well, are the cards that were graded prior to the algorithm or the computer, are those just not valid anymore because they were human graders? But I see a lot of potential there. And as you said, I think CGC is looking at this going, wow, there's an opportunity here to really step into the market to shake things up while PSA is so backlogged and backed up. And especially now that they've transitioned from publicly held to a privately held company, I think
Yes.
that there's a lot of opportunity for CGC.
There is, and as far as computer grading is concerned, I've been confronted by somebody who wants me to endorse a pretty advanced computer program that could be ready in the next month, and
Wow.
so I realize, like I love to say, when I was born, we didn't have a TV set in the house. We had to go to a neighbor's house to watch, two 30-minute black and white TV shows. So I am no tech expert, right? And a lot of older people think, well, there's newfangled stuff. Although I'm kind of like that. When cell phones first came out and they had the brick phones, I said, what a stupid idea. Who would ever, I mean, I can just pull over at the phone booth here and make my call. Who would ever spend money on a portable phone? So that shows you sometimes we're not as smart as we think we are. Now suddenly our whole life is on the phone,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
so let me see, what was I getting at there?
So you were talking about
About
the
the
endorsement. Yeah.
computer, yeah. And so they came to me, and I'm like you. I love the idea. I absolutely
Hmm.
love the idea, and I see no reason why it couldn't operate expertly. I really
Hmm.
I really see that, and I'm not saying I'm getting involved, because there's I mean, I'm retired. I'm okay with my bills and stuff. I don't really need to get involved in a in any kind of a money making thing and go back to work or whatever. I just love this idea so much. It doesn't mean I'm going to get into it.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to push it because there's any reason to. It's just that I feel like you do. It makes nothing but sense. Nothing. I mean, a computer didn't have a fight with their wife before they left to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know there's times I feel good, times I feel bad. If I look at a card and I see a borderline 9 to 10, if I'm not feeling right, I give it a 9.
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and and yet and yet if I just got my stimulus check, I say, oh, that's a 10. Something like that. Computers aren't going to be like that. So I love the idea of it, and if it actually works properly and works accurately, uh, I mean, I see nothing but good,
Hmm.
about it. I feel the same as you, and I know there's others that maybe don't. I really don't catch the argument against it, but
Hmm.
um, but I like that too.
Well, and on top of that, not only does the computer system, not have a fight at home, but the computer doesn't require paid time off, sick leave, it can work 24/7 essentially if it needed to. So
Yes.
the backlogs that we're having right now would essentially be non-existent, because you would
Right.
have systems running. Really, at that point, it's a win-win for the company, because you reduce your staffing, you reduce your overhead. Maybe you hire people to collect products or to collect the cards to ship them back out, but the whole
Yeah.
process in between that used to require tons of man hours, you've essentially eliminated that, and you can get cards back out to customers much faster.
Yes. No, that's very true. Yeah. It would have to speed it up. I don't know. I mean, I can't see it taking the computer longer to put a number on it than it does for an individual to do it. It can't take longer, and that, like you said, it can go 24/7. Chances are, and yeah, you can use humans, to double check, to make quality control checks and things like that. But I don't think there's any doubt that's going to happen.
No, I think that there's the old norms, the old paradigms, I think are going to be hard to break for many of these companies, and I think it will take maybe a CGC. I could see if there were any of the bigger grading companies that would do it. I would think that it would probably be CGC, but more than likely it's going to take a brand new company to step in and say, nope, this is what we're going to do from the very beginning, because I think PSA, Beckett, that they are very much stuck in their way of doing things. They've done it for decades now, and I think at this point, in my opinion, PSA is moving more towards high-end grading, I guess you could say. I think they're going to completely eliminate their bulk submissions. I think that they're only going to allow certain thresholds, the thresholds of value for cards to actually be submitted. And I think they want to appear more as like the gold standard. So, for Gary, they're only going to be accepting those first edition base set Charizards, those type of gold standard cards. And then maybe, because I think now that they're privately held, they're looking at it as, people can send in cards that maybe they acquired for, raw card for a few $100s, get that card encapsulated, authenticated, graded, and that could 10x the value on that card. And they're seeing that the sort of disassociation from what they're charging to what people are actually receiving in return.
It's going to be interesting to see if that's the case. And in fact, it's going to be interesting to see who, you think it's CGC or it could be a brand new company. It's going to be fun watching. I know this company that is trying to get me to work with them. They have two major companies that are extremely successful already, and now they want to get into this. So, I can see them doing, very well. And yeah, so it's just going to be fun to watch that evolve. But I think it's going in that direction like you do. And human graders could be a thing of the past real soon.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's, as I said, we're really on the precipice of so many things within the hobby, and it will be a lot of fun to see where things go. But Gary, before we go ahead and wrap up here, on top of your amazing collection and everything that you do for the community and all of those things, one of the aspects that you've like that check there right behind you, you have done so much good in donating so much money to charity and creating so many charities. I know that the Autism Foundation is near and dear to your heart as well. Before we wrap things up here, can you give some of our listeners, some of our viewers, some insight on maybe some new events or new charities that you have coming up that we can all look forward to?
Yeah, well, there was a tremendous one tonight, that John, Pokemon Radar, put together. And in fact, while we were talking, he sent me a text. He wanted to discuss the results because I think he said that it raised 50 or 60,000.
Wow.
And the beneficiary, the majority of the beneficiary is going to be me, and Steve is going to be the Aoki Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so I mean that's just tonight, something that happened. And yes, the next Collecticon, which is coming up in just a couple months, and it's also going to be in Texas. They're going to be donating to our charity, to the Aoki Foundation. On stage, I'm going to be doing an appearance there, but they're going to be presenting the check to Tuan and I, on behalf of the foundation. Steve will be doing a recorded message of thanks, to Collecticon and that. And then there's going to be, hopefully in Las Vegas. Now this is just between you and me. hopefully in Las Vegas, Collecticon 3. I mean, what better place in Vegas to run to have a convention, right? There's no downtime in Vegas, right?
No.
So that's going to be coming up, later on in the year. We're having a major event on October 9th here in Las Vegas, where we're going to be doing a box break of the first edition base box that was given to me by Chris from Dumb Money, the legit box. Chris from Dumb Money, he put it in my hand, and now it's mine on behalf of the charity. And
awesome.
Every single nickel is going. He's getting nothing back, nothing out of it. It's all going to our charity. That'll be October 9th. And we're building it around a whole event. You asked about events that day. The great DJ, you see the great DJ, James Kennedy is already committed to come and do the music work. Like I told Steve the other day, he's out of the country, but I talked to him on the phone. Like I told him the other day, if James Kennedy didn't agree to do this, then it was going to be Steve and I doing the DJ work. And
well, what just to pique my interest, what would you throw on the track, Gary?
Yeah, what's a track? Anyway, that event's going to be tremendous. That one on October 9th is going to be amazing. It's going to be there's going to be a financial content creators meeting in the morning with guys like Graham Steffen, who's one of my new neighbors here in town now. With these guys, and then we're going to be doing all kinds of things like throwing cakes at each other and just having fun. And then we'll be doing the box break on October 9th, live box break from 4 to 8, before Steve has to run off to one of our local casinos where he does a residency to work. So that'll be from 4 to 8, 8 o'clock solid, because he has to run off and, to that job. But, we were talking about how busy Steve is, and this gives you an idea. That was the one day for the rest of the year that he could give me, that he could commit to me to do our charity event. And that otherwise we were looking at 2022 at some point. So, yeah. So anyway, that's a big event. Of course, even though foreigners won't be able to go into Japan, there is going to be the Olympics in Japan, and there could be quite a Pokemon influence there. So that's something else that's going to be good for the hobby. Of course, Pokemon has things planned, and they have some surprises, that we're not privy to coming up. I mean, there's just so much coming up this year that this is such a fun time for us.
Oh, definitely. And I can only expect it getting bigger and better as now that we're starting to, it seems, transition out of the pandemic. Things are starting to open up more. People are starting to get out and about, getting to more social gatherings. I can expect that over the course of the next year or so, especially with this being Pokemon's 25th anniversary, it's only going to explode even further as people want that connection. They want to be able to meet people like yourself in person. I'm interested, the one on October 9th, is that going to be open to the public?
No, that's going to be, that won't be. It's going to be at one of our local guys' estates, and it's going to be an invitation only event. But then soon after, the same week or the following week, we're hoping to do the Collecticon. And remember, this is just between you and me, and you and us. That isn't finalized yet. But I figure the more I talk about it, the better chance it's going to happen, because I would love it to be in Vegas. I mean, Vegas is a great place for collectible shows anyway. And so hopefully the third one is going to be here. And so, but it's not finalized. Within 2 weeks on the Collecticon website, they'll be, doing the updates on number 2 and number 3. See, number 1 was so successful, the one from 2 weeks ago, where Real Breaking Nate, Leonhardt, and I, we did our appearance, signed and pictures and that. Antoine, it's funny, she has quite a following,
she
Twan
does.
Yeah, she does. And so that was really flattering to her, that people were asking her for her autograph and stuff like that. It was so cool. But I'll tell you what,
I have to tell you real quick, Gary. So what is so funny is I actually have one of Twan's giveaways. This was, probably summer of last year. She had a giveaway on Instagram, which was a signed base set Polyrath, and I actually won it. So I've got yours and her signature on the Polyrath.
Well, was it an ungraded one, right? Signed on the card?
Signed on the card, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, she had a lot of fun with that. And she's still going to be, I think she's going to be running one soon. One of our Collecticon VIP badges, signed by Nate, Real Breaking Nate, and myself, that she'll be giving away. And Nate is a sweetheart. He's loved by so many people. That's gonna be a tremendous, one. But yeah, she's done those giveaways. I had a guy that came up to me in line in Frisco, in Dallas, and showing me his giveaway, and it was a base Charizard that she gave away in the very beginning when she first started. And that, and now that card is worth 20 times what it was worth when she gave it away. But that's kind of like how it was, for that show. And it was like triple the number of people we were expecting. And because, like you just said, people want to get out. People, it's been a year, right? We're sociable animals. We want to do things, and the good news is, I must have fist pumped or shook hands or hugged 1,000 people there, right? With masks, without masks. I tried to wear my shield, right? Twan says, "Don't hide your pretty face," so I wore a shield. And so, and yet not one case of COVID can be traced back to the convention. And this is like 15 days later. Not one case of COVID can be traced to anybody who attended that convention. So yeah, this is starting to get over with now. And and people are dying to get out, dying to get to these shows. I don't know how many pictures you saw of the show, but I mean, we got double the in-state attendance, triple the out-of-state attendance. A lot of those states don't let you go to the market, right? Or don't let you go to a restaurant, right? Well, they were all leaving the state to go to this show. Because, like you said, they want to get out. They want to do things now, and this gives them the opportunity. And it was so successful, safe and successful. That's a beautiful thing. And there was a concern. We were worried about that, and now it makes it. It's super obvious that that's fine. And now 3 months down the road, it's going to be even better. More vaccinated people.
Yeah.
And that, of course, I've been vaccinated because of my age and stuff. So yeah, but that's gonna be a lot of fun. And now's the time people can start. Stay safe. Do what you're supposed to do, but you got to live your life. You got to live your life. I mean, this has been a rough year for too many people, and now let's party. But safely, of course.
That's right. Well, if for any reason it doesn't work out elsewhere with Collecticon, we're pretty open here in Arizona. I'm just putting it out there, Gary. We're pretty open.
You are. You know what? It would be great to go from Nevada to Arizona. Yeah, that would be great, because Arizona and Nevada, we can draw from all over the West Coast. Draw a ton from California. So yeah, absolutely. I guarantee you Arizona is on the radar there. I assure you that. And we want to get to different places, different states and that. And I just hope I can, keep up with it, because I love the guys that are doing it. They're just tremendous, good people, solid people, experienced, extremely, extremely competent. So I hope to do a lot of things, with them. And yeah, and I agree. Let's go to Scottsdale or Phoenix, or what is the little town you're from?
I live over in Queen Creek, actually, which is in the southeast part of the Phoenix metro. But the house that I'll be moving to is in a place called Gold Canyon, which is even further out. I like to be on the outskirts. I'm not much of a city guy, so I like to be on the outskirts. I like to be close enough to the city, but far enough out that I've got space. I
see. Yeah, I mean, a convention there. I mean, that town, that area, that valley can support 10 conventions. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely. Wow. Well, Gary, I am really looking forward to it. I hope that we'll be able to actually meet in person here pretty soon. And
sure.
It's just been a pleasure speaking with you today, man. Like I said, you're such a genuine guy, and no matter who it is that you're speaking with, the biggest of creators, influencers, celebrities, down to the little people, as I said, your generosity just extends the same no matter who it is. So I truly appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. For anybody out there that wants to connect with you, find you on your different platforms, what are all of your different social media handles, all that good stuff?
Well, once again, the guy that had no TV set when he was a kid, I'm not big on social media, but I do Instagram, Real King Pokemon on Instagram. And I have a little tiny YouTube thing going on, mainly because I don't know how to work it, but maybe next time you're down here in Vegas, you can help me out with that. But yeah, really just on Instagram, Real King Pokemon. And my wife, Twan, at Autism Instruct, she helps me, with my scheduling and that, because my brain is old, so she helps me. And then a little bit on YouTube. I put a few things on YouTube that might be fun to watch. I don't know, but that one is just King Pokemon.
Awesome. Well, Gary, again, thank you so much for being here today. I hope that we can get you back on again in the near future, and hope to see you in person soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking me, and I guarantee you I'll be back.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here, guys. Other than that, we will see you all next time right here on the Pokemon Masterclass. Take care, everybody.